My name is Tanya, 24 years old. The night started out like any other, laughter spilling out of open windows, music pulsing from the walls, and that faint smell of beer and perfume mixing in the air. You know the kind of night I'm talking about. The kind where everyone's a little too dressed up for a casual hangout, but no one really minds. The kind of night where strangers brush past you, smile, and suddenly feel like old friends after just a few words. My boyfriend and I walked in hand, already surrounded by a buzz of voices, clinking glasses, and bursts of music that made the floor vibrate under our shoes. The room glowed in different colors, soft neon strips taped along the walls. Fairy lights draped across the ceiling. People were dancing in the middle of the living room, while others clustered in the corners, swapping stories and laughing like they had the best secrets in the world. At first, it felt perfect. We grabbed drinks, found some friends, and started to settle into the rhythm of the night. He leaned close to whisper jokes in my ear, his hand brushing against mine, and for a while, everything felt normal, fun, even. And then, we met her. She came out of nowhere, like she had just appeared beside us without warning. She was smiling, her eyes wide, as if she'd been waiting for us to notice her. She introduced herself quickly, her words spilling out faster than the music beat, and before I could even process her name, she was already asking us where we were from, how we knew the host, how long we'd been together. Her friendliness was a little overwhelming. Don't get me wrong, I like meeting new people. But there was something about the way she leaned into close, laughed at everything my boyfriend said, and touched his arm when she spoke, that made me raise an eyebrow. Still, I brushed it off. I told myself, she's just one of those overly friendly people. It doesn't mean anything. We made small talk, the kind you forget 5 minutes later. But she didn't seem interested in mingling with anyone else. Everywhere we moved, she followed. When we stood near the kitchen, she was right there. When we stepped outside for some air, she came too, shivering dramatically and asking if my boyfriend had a lighter. Even though she didn't have a cigarette, the more the night went on, the more it felt like she was quietly slipping her way into our evening. And honestly, I didn't know what to make of it. Part of me thought it was harmless. Another part of me felt that prickle in my stomach, the one that warns you something's off even when you can't explain why. Hours later, when the crowd started thinning and the music died down, she appeared again, this time with a request. She asked if anyone could give her a ride home. People looked away, muttering excuses about living in the opposite direction. Then her eyes landed on us. "We can take you," I heard myself say before I even thought it through. My boyfriend nodded in agreement, and just like that, it was decided. The ride was short, but in that small span of time, she filled every second with chatter. She asked us questions, but her eyes lingered on him more than on me. She laughed at his jokes, even the ones that weren't funny, and leaned forward from the backseat to keep the conversation alive. It wasn't outright flirting, but it was close enough to make me notice. When we pulled up to her apartment building, she didn't just hop out with a quick goodbye. Instead, she tilted her head, gave us a smile, and said, "Do you guys want to come up for a second, just to use the restroom before you head home?" It was late. We were tired. But something about the way she asked made it hard to refuse. Not wanting to seem rude, we followed her upstairs. Her apartment was small, but cozy, decorated with string lights and plants in mismatched pots. She walked in confidently, like she had been waiting all night to show it off. I went to the restroom quickly, not thinking much of it, while she and my boyfriend sat in the living room talking. When I came back out, they were still mid-conversation, her laughter bubbling up like she'd just heard the funniest thing in the world. We didn't stay long, just a few minutes. Enough to be polite. We said our goodbyes, waved, and left. It felt like nothing more than a tiny footnote in an otherwise ordinary night. But here's the thing. Sometimes the smallest moments are the ones that change everything. At the time, I thought it was just another party, Another stranger we'd probably never see again. I thought it was no big deal to give her a ride. No big deal to step into her apartment for a few minutes. But no. When I look back, I realize that was the first domino to fall. The night that seemed harmless was the beginning of something I never saw coming. And if I had known then what I know now, I might have said no to that ride. I might have trusted that uneasy feeling in my gut. Because that one decision, the choice to let her into our night, was about to unravel everything I thought I knew about my relationship. That party wasn't just a party. It was the start of the story I never wanted to tell. The morning after the party started like any other ordinary day. The sun peeked through the blinds in soft stripes, and the faint hum of traffic outside mixed with the clatter of neighbors getting ready for their day. I was up earlier than usual, pulling on my work clothes, sipping my coffee in a rush, and mentally preparing for the hours ahead. My boyfriend had the luxury of staying home. It was his day off, and when I left, he was still curled up in bed, breathing slow and steady, with no plans in sight. I kissed his forehead before leaving and thought nothing of it. To me, the day seemed predictable. He'd probably sleep in, watch a show or two, maybe play some video games. That was his routine whenever he had the house to himself. The hours at work dragged, as they always do. I busied myself with my tasks, checked the time too often, and looked forward to heading home where I could relax. I didn't text him much throughout the day. It wasn't unusual for us to go hours without talking if one of us was busy. Everything felt normal. But normal would soon be the last word I'd use to describe that day. When I finally walked in through the door, tired and ready to unwind, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I slipped off my shoes and looked around, expecting him to greet me. Instead, I found him stretched out on the couch, asleep. His chest rose and fell with a calmness that made me smile at first. I figured, yep, classic him, slept all morning, took another nap, and wasted the day away. I gently nudged him awake, laughing softly. Hey, sleepyhead, what did you do all day? I was expecting a yawn and something along the lines of, nothing much, just caught up on some shows. That's what he always said. But instead, what came out of his mouth hit me like ice water poured over my skin. Oh, I slept all morning, he mumbled groggily. And then I went to lunch with that girl from the party. For a second, I froze. I thought I must have misheard him. Maybe he said a guy from the party. Or maybe he meant he ran into someone else while grabbing food. I blinked, trying to process. Wait, lunch? With her? I asked carefully, almost hoping he'd correct himself. But he didn't. He just nodded, completely casual, as if he'd just told me he went to pick up groceries. That's when the first ripple of unease crawled up my spine. It didn't make sense. They had just met the night before. She was practically a stranger. There had been no group hangout, no mutual friends bonding us together. It was just her and him going to lunch alone. I forced a laugh, trying to keep my tone light. Since when are you two friends? He shrugged. She asked me to go to breakfast this morning, but I didn't wake up in time, so we ended up grabbing lunch instead. The way he said it so nonchalantly, so free of guilt, made my stomach twist, because to him, it was apparently no big deal. But to me, it felt like a neon sign flashing red flag. I didn't want to explode right then and there. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, my chest tightening with unspoken words. But I swallowed them down. We were supposed to go out later for my grandma's birthday dinner, and the last thing I wanted was to start a fight that would ruin the evening. Still, inside, my thoughts spiraled. Why her? Why did I? She had known us for less than 24 hours. She hadn't reached out to me, hadn't tried to connect with me in any way. Instead, she'd gone straight to him. And the strangest part, he didn't find that odd at all. As he sat there, scrolling casually on his phone, I replayed his words in my head. She asked me to breakfast. Breakfast? The word lingered, sour on my tongue. It wasn't even lunch she wanted. She wanted to see him in the morning. First thing, like she couldn't wait. And when that didn't work, she didn't give up, she just shifted the time. That effort alone made me uneasy. Who goes out of their way like that to grab food with someone they barely know? I tried to keep my face neutral. But inside, suspicion gnawed at me. Was she lonely? Maybe. Was she just overly friendly? Possibly. But was it innocent? That I wasn't so sure about. The more I thought about it, the more unsettling it became. I pictured them sitting across from each other at some little cafe. Did she laugh at his jokes the same way she had at the party? Did she lean in close, touch his arm, give him that same overeager smile? I hated how vivid the image was in my head, and yet I couldn't stop myself from imagining it. And worse, what if he enjoyed it? It wasn't just about her. It was about him. Why didn't he think to tell me before he went? Why didn't it cross his mind to invite me? Even just a quick text, "Hey, she asked me to lunch. Want to come too?" would have changed everything. But instead, he went, ate, left, and came home to nap. Like it was the most normal thing in the world. I sat there on the couch beside him, my smile tight, my thoughts louder than the silence between us. He didn't notice, or maybe he did, but chose to ignore it. I told myself not to overreact, not to let jealousy get the best of me. But this wasn't jealousy, this was discomfort. This was my intuition whispering, something isn't right. The girl from the party had already slipped into our lives more than I was comfortable with. First the ride home, then the invite upstairs. And now, a private lunch with my boyfriend the very next day. And the worst part, it felt like I was the only one who thought any of this was strange. That night, as we got ready for my grandma's birthday dinner, I stayed quiet. I didn't bring it up. I told myself it wasn't the right time, that maybe I'd talk to him later. But deep down, I already knew this wasn't something I could just brush aside, because no matter how casual he made it sound, that one lunch had opened a door I wasn't sure I could close again. I've always believed that trust is the foundation of a healthy relationship, and honestly, I never considered myself the jealous type. My boyfriend had female friends before we'd hung out with them, grabbed coffee, shared laughs, and it never bothered me. I know the difference between platonic and suspicious, between harmless and hurtful. But this felt different. She wasn't a long-term friend who'd been around for years. She wasn't a coworker he saw every day at his job. She wasn't even a classmate or a neighbor. No, she was a stranger who had entered our lives less than 24 hours ago. Someone we didn't know existed until that party. And yet somehow, in less than a day, she'd managed to carve out a spot in his schedule and in my mind. What made it worse was how deliberate it all felt. She hadn't tried to include me in the picture. She hadn't asked the both of us to join her. No, she went straight to him. It wasn't a casual "we should all hang out sometime." It was "you and me, tomorrow, breakfast, and if not breakfast, then lunch." That kind of persistence was bold, too bold, and it unsettled me. Later that night, after the lunch incident had already planted its seed in my chest, I picked up my phone and opened Facebook. It was almost instinctive, like I needed to see if anything else had happened. And there was confirmation of the unease I already felt. They were now Facebook friends, a small, seemingly insignificant detail. But it made my stomach drop, because here's the kicker: she hadn't sent me a request. Not even a polite gesture of "hey, let's connect since we met last night." Nothing, just him. And that told me something. She knew we were a couple. She knew we were together, holding hands, standing side by side at that party. She knew we gave her a ride home together. Yet somehow, when it came to choosing who to reach out to, she cut me out entirely. That wasn't an oversight. That was intentional. And my boyfriend, he didn't see it. Or maybe he did, and didn't think it mattered. He accepted her request like it was no big deal. Like it was just another friendly addition to his feed. To him, it was harmless. To me, It was another red flag waving right in front of my face. As we got ready to leave for my grandma's birthday dinner, I stood in front of the mirror, brushing my hair, pretending to be calm. On the outside, I smiled and joked, making sure my family would see the happy version of me. But inside, my mind was running circles. Why was she so eager to meet up with him? Why didn't he think it was weird? Why did she ignore me completely? And why did I feel like I was the one being left out of my own relationship? That was the heart of it, the exclusion. It wasn't just that she reached out to him. It was that she did it in a way that deliberately left me on the sidelines. She'd inserted herself into his day, his online space, his attention. But not mine. It was like she wanted a connection with him and only him. And I couldn't shake the question, why? I kept telling myself not to overreact, that maybe I was making it bigger than it was. Maybe she was just socially awkward and didn't think about including me. Maybe she was just looking for a friend and picked the one who seemed easiest to approach. But deep down, I knew better. Women know these things. We pick up on subtle cues, the way someone's eyes linger, the way their laugh comes a little too easily, the way their invitations are worded. I had seen it all before in other contexts, and this was no different. She wasn't just being friendly, she was testing boundaries. And what scared me more than her persistence was his lack of awareness, because if he couldn't see the red flags, or worse, if he chose to ignore them, then where did that leave me? At dinner, surrounded by my family, I kept my mask on. I smiled at my grandma as she blew out her candles. I laughed at my uncle's corny jokes. I helped my mom pass dishes around the table. From the outside, I was the picture of normalcy. But in my head, I was replaying everything like a movie I couldn't turn off. Him saying he went to lunch with her. Him explaining how she had first asked for breakfast. The image of their names now side by side on Facebook, and me sitting there silently, trying to pretend none of it mattered. It was exhausting, carrying that storm inside while pretending to be fine. And yet, I stayed quiet. I told myself it wasn't the right time to bring it up, that maybe I'd wait until tomorrow or the next day when we weren't in the middle of a family celebration. I convinced myself that keeping the peace was more important in that moment. But the truth, the silence wasn't peace. It was just postponing a war that was already brewing inside me. Because ignoring red flags doesn't make them disappear. It only makes them brighter the longer you look away. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the end of it. It was only the beginning. The restaurant buzzed with warmth and chatter, the kind of comforting noise that usually drowns out your thoughts. Waiters moved quickly between tables. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic bread drifting through the air, glasses clinking, as my family toasted to my grandma's birthday. On the surface, it was a celebration, a happy moment, and there I was, smiling, laughing, and pretending everything was fine. But inside, my mind was anything but quiet. No matter how many jokes I forced myself to laugh at or how many times I lifted my fork to eat, my thoughts kept circling back to one image, the two of them, sitting at some lunch table together. I could see it so vividly, him sitting across from her, leaning forward the way he does when he's engaged in conversation, her twirling her hair around her finger, tilting her head just so, her laugh bubbling up like champagne. Did she flirt? Did he notice? Or worse, did he enjoy it? The questions claw at me, sharp and relentless. It wasn't just jealousy. That's the part I kept telling myself. This wasn't about being possessive or overprotective. It was about boundaries, the kind of invisible lines you don't cross when you're in a relationship. Not because someone's controlling, but because respect matters. And to me, this crossed a line. If some new guy I barely knew asked me out to lunch the very next day, the first thing I'd do is tell my boyfriend. Maybe I'd even invite him along, make it a group thing. That's just what you do when you care about someone's feelings. That's respect. So why didn't he do the same? The thought hit me over and over. like waves crashing against the same rock until it starts to crumble. Did it not even occur to him that this would bother me? Or did he realize it and just not care enough to say anything? I shifted in my chair, trying to focus on my grandma across the table. She was smiling, her eyes sparkling as she soaked in the attention from everyone around her. I should have been fully present, celebrating her, but instead, my chest felt tight, my throat dry. As I replayed every detail in my head, I pictured him getting her message, her asking him to breakfast. Breakfast. That detail stung the most. She hadn't just wanted to see him, she wanted to see him first thing in the morning. And when he didn't wake up in time, she didn't let it go, she just shifted it to lunch. That persistence, it was hard to ignore. And what bothered me even more, he didn't think twice about saying yes. I stabbed at my food with my fork, nodding along absent-mindedly to whatever story my cousin was telling. On the outside, I was calm. On the inside, I was unraveling. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it really was just a friendly lunch, nothing more. I told myself that again and again, like repeating it enough times would make it true. But then the other voice in my head would whisper, if it was just friendly, then why does it feel so wrong? That question wouldn't leave me alone. I thought about how she hadn't added me on Facebook. Only him. How she'd ignored me when making plans, focusing entirely on him. How, in less than a day, she had somehow carved out private time with my boyfriend without even attempting to include me. And the part that kept twisting the knife was how he seemed blind to it. Or maybe he just didn't want to see it. As my family sang happy birthday, I clapped along, my smile plastered in place. But my mind was somewhere else. I kept wondering what they had talked about during that lunch. Did they talk about me? Did she ask about our relationship? Did she test the waters, try to see if he'd give away cracks in the armor? The worst case scenarios played in my head like a movie reel. Her leaning in, her hand brushing his arm, her voice dropping low in that intimate way people do when they want to draw someone closer. Him smiling back, maybe not pulling away fast enough, maybe enjoying the attention. And then I'd snap back to reality, ashamed of myself for imagining it, angry at myself for even letting my mind wander there. But I couldn't stop, because deep down, it wasn't just about her, it was about him. About the fact that he didn't draw a line, didn't think to mention it to me, didn't see how it might hurt. That's what gnawed at me most of all. I glanced at him across the table. He was laughing at something my brother had said. His face relaxed, completely unbothered, for a moment. I studied him like he was a stranger. Did he feel guilty and hide it well, or did he genuinely not think he'd done anything wrong? The more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I became. Yet, I stayed quiet. I didn't bring it up. I didn't lean over and whisper the million questions on my mind. I told myself it wasn't the right time. We were surrounded by family, celebrating a milestone, and I refused to be the one to taint the night with tension. So I swallowed it. I folded my napkin neatly in my lap, sipped my drink, and laughed at the right moments. But underneath, I was unraveling, because silence doesn't equal peace. Silence is just holding your breath, waiting for the moment when you finally can't anymore. That night, as we drove home, I sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window. The city lights blurred past, my reflection faint against the glass. I could feel the words building in my throat, but I swallowed them down again. I told myself, tomorrow, I'll bring it up tomorrow. But the truth was, I wasn't sure I'd ever find the right moment, because saying it out loud meant admitting how much it bothered me, admitting how shaken I was by one simple lunch, and maybe admitting I was afraid of what the answers might be. Now, I feel stuck in this strange in-between. On one hand, I don't want to accuse my boyfriend of something he didn't do. He's never given me a solid reason not to trust him. If I confront him too harshly, I risk looking controlling, paranoid, or insecure. I don't want to become that person, the partner who micromanages every move, who doesn't allow space, who suffocates love with suspicion. But on the other hand, my gut tells me this isn't normal. Because here are the facts I can't ignore. She went out of her way to see him again, less than 24 hours after meeting. First, she asked him to breakfast. And when that didn't work, she didn't drop it, she shifted it to lunch. That's not a casual maybe we'll bump into each other again sometime kind of thing. That's deliberate effort. She didn't involve me, not once, not in the ride home, not in the invitation, not in the Facebook request. She kept me out of the picture. And whether my boyfriend realized it or not, he went along with it. He said yes without hesitation. And that decision, that yes, keeps echoing in my head. It leaves me spiraling in questions I can't answer. Was this truly just an innocent lunch between two new friends? Nothing more than small talk over sandwiches? Or was it the first breadcrumb of something else? Something I wasn't supposed to see yet. I replay the scenario in my mind 100 different ways. I imagine him sitting there, maybe ordering his usual burger and fries, smiling across the table. I imagine her leaning forward, as locked on his, laughing too loud at every joke, maybe brushing her hand against his just long enough to test the waters. And I ask myself, what if he liked it? What if, even in some small way, he enjoyed the attention she gave him? That thought terrifies me more than anything else. Because if it was innocent, if it truly meant nothing, then why am I still sitting here with this heavy weight in my chest? Why hasn't the unease gone away? I try to reason with myself. Maybe she's just lonely. Maybe she doesn't know how to make friends without coming off too strong. Maybe my boyfriend genuinely saw it as nothing more than lunch, and I'm reading into it too much. But then another voice cuts in, the voice of instinct. That inner alarm bell we all have, the one that rings quietly at first, then louder the more we ignore it. And mine hasn't stopped ringing. Because sometimes it's not about the action itself, it's about the patterns. It's about noticing when something feels off, even if you can't put it into neat little words. And this feels off. What bothers me the most is the silence, the things that weren't said. He didn't text me before he went. He didn't invite me to come along. He didn't see the red flags. Or if he did, he didn't acknowledge them. And she deliberately left me out. Those unsaid things, those missing pieces, feel louder than anything that was actually spoken. I haven't confronted him. Not fully, sure. I asked casually what he did that day, but I never told him how much it bothered me. I never told him how wrong it felt that she reached out to him so quickly, or how excluded I felt when she ignored me completely. I never told him that the idea of them sitting together in some restaurant makes my stomach twist into knots. Instead, I've kept it all bottled up. But here's the problem with bottling things up: it doesn't make them disappear. It just builds pressure, and I can feel that pressure rising, like a storm cloud hovering over us, waiting for the moment it finally cracks open. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder, if I never say anything, will this just blow over? Will she fade out of the picture as quickly as she entered it? Or will staying silent give her more space to slip in? And what if my silence makes him think it's okay? That going to lunch with her wasn't a big deal? What if the next time she asks, because something tells me there will be a next time, he says yes again, without hesitation? The thought eats at me. I know I'll have to face it eventually. I know I can't live in this in-between forever, because relationships don't survive in silence. They survive in honesty, even when that honesty is uncomfortable. But I also know that once I open my mouth, once I bring this up, I can't take it back. The words will hang between us. And depending on how he reacts, everything could change. So here I am, balancing on the edge of that decision. Do I speak up and risk a fight? Or do I keep pretending, hoping my gut is wrong? For now, I'm holding back, watching, waiting, trying to convince myself that maybe, just maybe, this was innocent after all. But the truth is, the uneasy feeling hasn't gone away. It lingers, heavy and unshakable, like a shadow that follows me even in the brightest rooms, And honestly, maybe that's the real red flag. Because sometimes it's not about what's said out, it's about what's unsaid. And right now, the silence is deafening.